Yeah, it's great when get a chance for everyone to get into the game. A lot of backups got in, got some quality time, and it was nice to see a lot of the learning that went on with them. But to get their feet wet for the first time was nice.
And now you've had a chance, I'm sure it took you a long time to go over all the film from that game because there were so many plays. But what are your biggest takeaways about your team, what went right, and what you need to clean up?
Well, really it was about, coming out the first game and just keeping focus and staying true to the process on what we practiced, and then have that carry over to the game field, which I thought we did a pretty good job of that. But there was a lot of little things every game there's a lot of little things to clean up, and with alignments and certain things, and had a couple blown coverages, and but for the most part the guys hustled well, but there's learning experiences throughout the game.
You've been to Minneapolis before and beaten the Golden Gophers when you were coaching at Cal. Anything you remember about the atmosphere, the fan base? I know there's been a coaching change since, and P.J. Fleck's very unique in his approach, but anything you remember about that experience?
Not really. I think it was maybe I'm not sure, but I think I remember it was the first game in that stadium. But it's a great environment, great atmosphere, though. It'd be loud, and they have really good support there, and tough football team, obviously very physical Big Ten football team, and it's no different this year, and so we have our hands full for sure, and have to have a great week of practice.
And a lot has been made about them starting a true freshman walk-on at quarterback, but the tailback's not a true freshman walk-on, and neither is Tyler Johnson at receiver, or Winfield, who does a lot of things for him. How impressed are you with some of the veteran physical players they have on that squad?
Really good. Big physical offensive line. Running backs, excellent. Very quick. Great lateral movement. Hits the hole hard. And then they have some playmakers outside for sure. That can go up and get it. And the quarterback is a guy who's young, but there's a reason why he's a starter, and you could really see that on tape. He's very competitive, very tough kid, a guy who stands in there, and you could tell why he's the guy. It's just, I think he brings a lot of that to the table about what he does. He's very accurate with what they do with some of their RPO stuff, and and he's capable of hurting you with his legs as well. He's a good athlete, so he did a nice job in his first time out, and but we have to defend the whole field for sure. We can't be one-dimensional and just load the box or anything, because they have too many weapons outside.
Coach, you said after the win that you were, I guess you don't know what a team's going to be coming out of camp. Did it surprise you just how hungry they were on all facets of the game, offense, defense, special teams?
No, it doesn't surprise me. That's kind of what you look for, and and so as we took the field, it was more about us than anything else, just how we're gonna translate what we do in practice to the game. But you never know in the first game. But that's why I said, a couple minutes ago, I was pleased with the mindset that we took, the focus that we took the field with, and that we gave great effort, which I think is kind of one of the trademarks of our team. I think you can count on that each time out, is that we're going to give really good effort no matter what the outcome is. And so, when you work really hard, like for instance the 2 blocked field goals, that's something that we work hard at, and we give a lot of effort, because typically those plays are about effort, and they were executed really nicely, and obviously big plays in the game.
Coach, one of the first things you said was the backups got a lot of playing time. Jorge Reyna was your first recruit when you took this job a couple of years ago. Did he show you on Saturday what you first saw when you did recruit him? Yeah,
I thought he did a good job. We didn't get a chance to throw the ball very much when he was in there, but he did a nice job with the run game, kept the ball a couple times, used his legs to make some first downs, and but he was comfortable in there, going in. He had confidence. He went in and threw one nice pass, and but besides that, I thought he was very comfortable, and we have a lot of confidence in him. If anything were to happen to Marcus, that he could go in and do a nice job.
The plan going into the game, were you always going to get him some decent playing time in the second half? Because Marcus came out, obviously, for the first series.
No, it was depending on how the game went. We were going in to win the game, and whatever it took to do that, we just, were fortunate enough in the second half to be able to get some reserves in and get Jorge some playing time, along with the rest of the running backs and some receivers and the offensive line, defensive lines. I mean, on both sides of the ball. In special teams, we had a lot of guys who played in special teams as well. So it's good to get those guys experience, but it's also good that they're rewarded with some game time. And so they were excited to play.
Going from Idaho to Minnesota, do you think it'll be a difficult transition for the players to make, having a home game against an FCS school versus going to a Big Ten school on the road?
Well, going on the road is definitely different, and yeah, playing a Big Ten team, they're big and physical in all areas, and so there's a lot up front and on both sides of the ball. Typically, those are where the battles are won, or up front when you play these guys, and because they are big and physical, they're used to that type of game, being in that conference, and so we got to be ready for it, But anytime you go on the road, it's a little bit different playing at home.
Kind of on those two subjects, defensive line was the one position group that you had a lot of turnover from last season. We saw Jasad Haynes early on make an impact early on, but how would you assess the performance of your defensive line, first of all, in that game?
Yeah, I thought they did well for the first time out. I thought they played really hard, and we were able to get a lot of guys in. We rotated a lot of guys through there, which was nice. I thought Jasad played a very good game. He got our defensive player of the game. I can't remember all his stats. He had like 5 tackles and tackles for loss, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery. He played really hard. But I thought all in all, the front, you can improve on everything, but I thought, our front played pretty decent.
And then this week against Minnesota, I mean, that's like a whole nother level of challenge just because of the size and the mindset of what they want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Every guy along there is over 300 pounds, and they're big physical guys, and so it does pose a little bit different challenge. But our guys would be ready to play hard, but that's where fundamentals and technique and pad level and those type of things really come into play. You can't play higher; they'll knock you off the ball, and so. It's going to be a big week for both fronts, offense and defensive lines.
I don't know if I asked you this last year. Are you a believer in stadium walkthroughs? Do you go? Did Bulldogs normally go on a Friday and when you go on the road and have your walkthrough in the stadium?
We do. We don't have a walkthrough. Typically, we practice here before we leave, and then we go there just to get the kind of the feel and the lay of the land and talk about. See the locker room, make sure we're organized, where our long side is, what pregame looks like, so on and so forth. We don't do anything. We just go there. We walk around. We walk the stadium just to get familiar with it, where the play clocks are, those type of things. So the first time we get there, we're not looking around trying to find a play clock as we come out for pregame.
You time how long it takes to get from the bus to the locker room, from the locker room to the field?
Exactly. Yeah, all those little things. See where the sun may be, all those type of things, the day before. If we're fortunate enough to be there at the time of when we're going to play the game, which we try to work it out that way. But just to get familiar with the place, really, is kind of what we go there for.
Then lastly, looking at the participation chart from the game, it looked like Wyland Free started at corner. Was there a specific reason for that? Was there a package that he's involved in? I mean, obviously, Tank Kelley played really well in that game.
Yeah, he played one play, and then Tank went in.
What about Tank Kelley? I mean, how well is he? I mean, I guess he's a guy who it just seems, from my observation, has improved a lot. Last year, he was very solid for you. Obviously, had a really good game in the opener. What do you attribute his, rapid improvement to, I guess, in the last couple of years?
I think his maturity, as much as anything, as he's grown over time here. And I'm really proud of Tank. Of one of the things coming in when we first got here was about building confidence and trust level. And, I think that's happened over time, and Tank's a very good example of that, I think through his career here, he's probably had a rocky road, but in caring about Tank and him being coachable and doing things like that, I think he's really improved, not only as a player, but he's doing well in school, and he's a good team guy, and so I just think he's matured quite a bit.
Coach, that new redshirt rule where guys can play up to 4 games and still maintain their redshirt, you had 24 players suit up for the first time in a Bulldog uniform on Saturday. How closely are you paying attention to that right now, and does that kind of impact your game plan for Minnesota and UCLA moving forward?
It does, yeah. Well, it'll be for all year. I really like that rule, but it's kind of uncharted waters a little bit. It's interesting dynamics on what goes on with those guys. How do you play them early? Do you play them late? We want to get some of them in early if we could, if the game worked out that way, which we did. And now we'll play it, as we go. You like to have some guys that can play later in the year when you start getting banged up, and some of your starters are on cover teams, on special teams and things. Some guys that can go in and spell some of the starters on special teams. So it's not just that, though. It's a lot deeper than that. It's what meetings do they sit in? They go to scout meetings. Do they sit in on our game plan meetings? How do you practice them? Are they on scouts? Are they involved in your game plan stuff? It's a lot deeper than just, are you going to play them or not? And so from here on out, we'll be pretty strategic about how we manage that.
Have you ever been around P.J. Fleck at all? And I'm sure you've seen him on TV. You've heard the row the boat mantra. As you evaluate, or not evaluate, but you just observe him from afar, what are the things that kind of jump up at you about the kind of coach he is and what he gets out of his team?
I don't really know much about him, to tell you the truth. Because our paths just have never crossed. We've never played one of his teams or anything like that, so I don't really know much about him. I know watching on tape, their team's very well coached, and so, and I know previously he's had a lot of success. That's where he's at. So I'm sure he has a great staff, and does. One thing I have heard about and saw a little bit about was, it's not just about the football thing. It's about, like everyone should do, I think, it's more about the players as a whole, about life experiences and discipline and all the things that go into football with it. It's not just about on the football field, so I respect that about him.
And you talked about how many guys got into the game and how you saw your depth on the line, at tailback, at receiver, even at quarterback. Should we expect maybe some shakeups or some guys who, because of their performance, earned a bigger role this coming Saturday?
No, not really. Maybe not a shakeup by any means, but some of the guys who played down the stretch kind of gave you some confidence that they could be ready to play, which would allow you to rotate them in a little bit more. That a couple guys did a nice job of that, on the lines, and especially on the offensive line. I thought there was a couple guys there that performed well, and could give us a little bit of breathing room when it comes about keeping guys fresh, and so that's something you always worry about with that group, because they don't get as many reps in practice, and so it was nice to see some of them, get their feet wet and get a feel for the game, and see them play a little bit, which can give you a little bit more confidence in what they can do.
I know you've talked a lot about recruiting locally and how important that is, and building those relationships with high school and junior college coaches, but you've also had a pretty distinct pattern of young men who are from this area who started their college careers elsewhere but then came back to play for the Bulldogs. How satisfying was it for you, in light of that, to see Ricky McCoy, a Roosevelt kid who transferred from Washington, Tippett, and Levell Tatum, an Edison kid who transferred from UNLV, intercepted? Was that play, did that give you a little chuckle or some satisfaction?
Well, yeah, I think any of those guys, it's great to see everyone have success, but Ricky played, and Tatum played, and Mekhi Quick played, and then you have a couple guys who scored touchdowns, like Romello Harris. He's another one who transferred back, and then DeJounte got a touchdown, and so it's great to see the local talent have success. Their fans, their family, their friends, everyone, it's great to see them make an impact on what we're doing.
And did you have to put ice on Asa Fuller's leg after that game?
Yeah, well, actually, in practice yesterday, typically we will have a big kicking session, but he must have kicked, I don't know, 20 balls or something in that game, and so we gave him a little bit of a rest yesterday. We didn't kick him at all yesterday because he had, obviously the kickoffs and the extra points and a couple field goals, so tried to let him rest a little bit yesterday.
Last thing for me, you did have the sack right off the bat with Jasad Haynes, and I realize you didn't do a whole lot, as far as exotic pressures and stuff in that game, but you at all concerned that you might need more of a pass rush this Saturday than you received this past Saturday?
Yeah, because we only had one sack this last week. Now, we pressured them enough to where they had to get rid of the ball and cause some errant throws and some stuff in the secondary. But, yeah, it's going to be a challenge for sure to get to them because they're very good up front, big physical offensive linemen that not only are big bruisers in the run game, but they're really efficient in pass protection as well. So we're going to have to do our best to try to get to the quarterback somehow, some way. But that's always key, to try to make sure we're mixing things up a little bit and keep them off balance. You can't just line up in the same front every down and think you're going to win those battles every single play. So we're going to have to do some things on defense to try to create an advantage. All right.